What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Legacy United Prime Universe Deluxe class Cliffjumper, who despite being a minor retool of the Rescue Bots Chase, is easily shaping up to be by far one of the best looking Transformers Prime updates that I think we've so far seen. So as we check out the details, the head sculpt is surprisingly appearing to be near spot on to how this guy did very briefly appear in the show. Unlike RC, they really haven't stylized anything at all. Even the rest of the robot design I think is looking strikingly close to the actual CG design, especially when you begin to check out the entire upper torso. In the TV show, Cliffjumper definitely did come across as being a super agile and sleek fighter, so it is wicked that this guy is mostly packing an incredibly slim build. There is barely any extra kibble. Even these back wings I think mostly integrate really well into the design, and despite this guy being a part of a 4-pack that does primarily consist of both repaints and retools, I think it is safe to say that right now he is easily looking to be the best out of the bunch. Jumping into Cliff's accessories, unfortunately he really doesn't include anything that we haven't seen previously. So up first we do see the return of the iconic Energon capture claw, which to be fair does almost seamlessly integrate into the design. One thing which I did think was sick when it came down to his accessories is that almost all of them are compatible with each other, meaning that you are able to create some pretty funky combinations. So, in true Prime Cliffjumper fashion, if the Decepticons want the horns, then they've got them, as the Energon Capture Claw is able to be broken apart into 3 distinctive pieces, meaning that you could totally have Cliff slicing and dicing some of those Vehicons. Or finally, easily the best combination out of the bunch would be to recreate Cliffjumper's iconic triple-barreled inbuilt blaster. Now the only downside to this would be that unfortunately he doesn't include a pair. In the TV show this guy was absolutely raining hell down upon the Vehicons, so in this case one is going to have to do, and unfortunately stacked up alongside the likes of the Cyberverse Universe Tarn, I unfortunately don't think that this guy once again stands a chance. Jumping into this guy's posability, this is the one area that I can say with absolute ease that he dominates his original first edition counterpart. So up first, the head can look up, it can look down, it can also turn both left to right. The shoulders should have no issues in moving forwards, especially if you do begin to flex the back panel. When it does come down to the outwards range, to be fair, it is pretty decent, although if you do find that the shoulders don't end up locking in for transformation, there is an incredibly easy and simple fix for this. Packed beneath the windshield is a tiny screw, and the second that you tighten that bad boy up, you should have no problems at all. The bicep can then rotate all the way around, and the elbow can then go pretty much there to 90. Unfortunately, he is lacking the iconic wrist articulation, although instead can begin to hinge both forwards and backwards, which leads me to believe that maybe originally they had planned, much like the first edition version, to engineer a flip-out cannon gimmick, although maybe at the last minute they decided to scrap this, as you don't even need this joint when it does come down to transformation. But one area where he absolutely reigns supreme in would be when it comes down here to the waist joint. This has no issues in spinning all the way around, and is surprisingly only held in via a mushroom peg, meaning that if you wanted to recreate where Megatron savagely slices him into 2 pieces, you should have no issues at all. The hips can kick forwards roughly to that far, which is an incredibly dynamic range, although unfortunately can't really kick back too far. They are also able to kick out roughly to this far. They can also rotate around here at the thigh. The knee can bend pretty much there to 90, and then finally when it does come down here to the ankle joint, surprisingly this can rock outwards more so than it can inwards, but despite that you are still able to get this guy into some pretty crazy poses. But as I'm sure you guys will know by now, to see the true power of Cliffjumper, now let's put him through the pose test. Blasting into some robot mode size comparisons, first up we are whacking out the Rescue Bots Universe Autobot Chase, and considering that for the most part Cliffjumper is a mere repaint slash retool of this guy, I think they did a pretty great job in creating 2 very different characters out of one mold. With the exception of the lack of the light bar and now a brand new head sculpt, Cliffjumper is pretty much exactly the same as this guy, yet to go back to my previous point, I think it's easily one of the nicest looking Transformers Prime figures that we've so far seen from the the Legacy lineup. Next up, we are whacking out an oldie but a goldie. We have that original first edition Cliffjumper, which I still think absolutely looks the part when it does come down to robot mode, although I've got to be honest with you guys, in terms of enjoyability, this brand new Legacy version is way more fun to mess around with in comparison. Here is how he sizes up alongside the Transformers Prime mainline Deluxe class Cliffjumper, who, to be honest guys, I do think in some areas may be even better looking in comparison to that first edition version. Which, speaking of, here we have the Prime Universe RC, which honestly guys, I think was such a low point when it came down to Legacy. She is easily one of the weakest figures that I think we've so far seen in the entire 3 chapters. But on the complete flip side, here we have the Prime Universe Bulkhead, who again, despite not being too accurate, at the very least was still enjoyable to mess around with. Then finally, as you guys all know by now, because no Transformers review is ever complete without the myth, the legend, that is the Earthrise Optimus Prime. Cruising our way into this guy's transformation, for the first step, you are going to take a hold of this component and slide this here downwards. Then for the next step, we can then proceed to channel our inner Megatron, take a hold of the windshield and lift this all the way up over the top of the head until eventually we have now revealed the internals of Cliffjumper. We can then spin around here to the back. You are now going to take a hold of this panel and proceed to snap this here downwards, exactly like this. We can then spin back round here to the front. You are now going to make use out of the shoulder joints and begin to extend these here upwards. Once that's complete, we can now make use out of this transformation joint and proceed to slide this here downwards. Again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So, rise the shoulder all the way over the top of the head like that. Then what you'll do is bring this transformation joint here downwards. Now what we shall do is spin down here to the legs of Cliffjumper, and first of all you must make sure that you take the outer part of the leg and slide this here inwards. Once that's complete, we can then make use out of the thigh joint and rotate that there outwards. We can then spin down to the foot design, take a hold of the heel spur and snap this down into place. We can now make use out of these hinge joints and completely extend these here down exactly like that. Again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So, firstly, take a hold of the outer part of the leg, then make use out of the thigh joints. Then what you'll do is take a hold of the heel spur, snap this here down, and proceed to extend downwards by making use out of those double hinge joints. It is now at this stage where we can proceed to combine this here directly down the middle. We can then spin down to what will become the front ends of the vehicle form and make sure that all of those tabs also really nicely snap into place. Once that's complete, we can now take a hold of these components and slide these here all the way back exactly like that. Then what you'll do is take a hold of the headlights and make sure that these also very nicely snap downwards. Then for the next step, we can now make use out of the hip joint, because the aim of the game here is to take a hold of the windshield and slide it underneath what will become the hood of the vehicle form. So right now, you should be left with something which is looking exactly like this. Then for the next step, we can now spin up here to these shoulders. These are going to arch backwards like that, and those tabs are going to very nicely slide into those slots. Again guys, now let's make sure to do the same for the opposite side. So, snap that bad boy there into place. Then for the next step, we can spin around here to the side, and the aim of the game is to slide this tab underneath that slot. Once that's complete, we can then make use out of this panel, slide this here down, and again, that tab has to slide underneath the door. Again guys, now let's spin around here to this side and do exactly the same. So, slide that tab underneath that slot, and again, making use out of these smokestacks, this should very nicely slide underneath the door until eventually Cliffjumper is now fully transformed. Racing his way through Nevada in pursuit of Energon, here we have Cliffjumper now fully transformed into his muscle car mode. And despite being a legacy update, this guy is still appearing to be incredibly close to the OG CG design. So as we check out the details, I think it is wicked to once again see the return of those iconic bull horns. These were such a distinctive design trait of this version of Cliffjumper, it is pretty sick to see them make their way over into the legacy universe. And even as we check him out here from the top, to be honest guys, I think they've done a great job in making that rescue bot's chase into a Transformers Prime character. This mold really does suit this character perfectly. Even as we spin him around here to the back, he is packing some pretty neat details, and not to mention, despite the wheels not being pinned on, he still has no issues in burning rubber alongside RC. So when it does come down to making that leap into the legacy universe, this guy should have no issues in absolutely turbocharging through that multiversal portal. Much like Chase, you can still soup Cliffjumper up to the max with some of those extra accessories, which to be fair guys, had he maybe deployed some of these in the show, then maybe he would have stood a slightly better chance in going up against the Decepticons. Sliding through some vehicle mode size comparisons, yet again we are whacking back out the Rescue Bots universe Chase. And as mentioned beforehand guys, they really have done very little in making this into a completely brand new character. With the exception of the removal of the light bar and some new tooling up front, this guy is pretty much identical to Chase. Again, I really do think they've done a great job in transforming this guy into an entirely different character. Because the second that we do whack back out the Transformers Prime First Edition Cliffjumper, whilst it may not be spot on, he is still easily recognizable as taking inspiration from this OG design. And to be fair guys, especially when in vehicle form, I do think this time round they came incredibly close. Here is how he stacks up alongside the Transformers Prime mainline Deluxe class Cliffjumper. So surprisingly, despite there being around 12 years difference between the two, they are very similar when it does come down to scale. Whacking out Cliffjumper's partner in crime, here we have the Prime Universe Deluxe class RC, and of course when it does come down to scale, unfortunately these two don't really stack up too well alongside each other, but at least RC has a pretty banging bike mode, so kind of rolling out alongside each other, they really should have no issues in wiping out some of those Decepticons. Here is how he stacks up alongside the Prime Universe Voyager class bulkhead, so again a pretty decent size for a Deluxe class. Then finally we have the myth, the legend that is Earthrise Optimus Prime, and considering that they've mostly done a really great job with this Cliffjumper, honestly guys, in the future I wouldn't mind seeing maybe a legacy take on the Prime Universe Optimus Prime. So, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Legacy United Prime Universe Deluxe Class Cliffjumper. As mentioned previously, despite only being a minor retool of a pre-existing character, I think they've done a pretty great job in recreating that original design, to the point where this is easily, hands down, the best Prime Universe figure that I think we've so far seen for the Legacy lineup. The only downside to this figure for myself is that he is unfortunately a part of a multi-pack, meaning that if you do wish to track him down, you are going to have to fork out a pretty hefty price tag, and if you have no interest in any of the other three figures, then unfortunately this is going to be one pricey Deluxe class. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on this Prime Universe Cliffjumper down in the comment section below. What do you guys think? I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, transform and roll out!